Hi there, this is Scott, and I wanted to make a little video talking about our great 2022 Canadian road trip to Eastern Canada. We haven't traveled since the start of COVID. We're being very careful to keep Ken safe, but we decided we wanted to go and have a little road trip, so we made a trip. We stayed away from big cities, just went to smaller cities, and had a little bit of an adventure. So this was our plan, we wanted to go and see the Bay of Fundy. So it's something we had seen on cruises. We'd been nearby a number of times. We'd been on cruises that went to the eastern part of Canada. But on a cruise ship, you get limited time to be there. You can't really see the world. And if your timing is not right, you're not going to see anything. So we figured, well, if we drove over there, then we would have the ability to take the time and see what we wanted to see. So that was the plan. About a 19-hour drive. Our goal was to do that over 3 days, but skip all the big cities. So no Toronto, no Montreal, no Quebec City, no Halifax, just focusing on little places along the way, just to keep things a little bit safer. So that is what we did. The first big surprise came in the northern part of the trip. Once we got north of Quebec City and up and over the top of Maine and coming back down, it was just gorgeous. I was shocked at how beautiful it was there. Big mountains and hills, pine trees and water. Really pretty driving, and especially given that it was a nice clear day when we drove through there. So I want to go back and spend some more time in this area. It was just gorgeous. Just everywhere you looked, so picturesque. And I really had no idea that you had these areas so close here in Canada. Now, our first stop along the way was in Moncton, where we went to Magnetic Hill. Now, this is an attraction that has been around for decades, and the idea behind the attraction is it is a hill that you drive down a little valley, and then you put your car into neutral and release the brake, and the car will roll backwards up the hill. So I have a little video of it. Now, Ken was filming this because I was in control of the car, so it's a little bit shaky, but you'll get the idea of what's going on. So we're at Magnetic Hill. So we're driving down the hill in the right lane. Until we get to a white post.
Boy, isn't this exciting.
This is exciting. And we put the car in neutral. Whee! How's this for crazy? The car is in neutral. And yet we're going backwards up the hill. How the hell is this happening?
I certainly wasn't expecting that.
Well, that is bizarre. So that's the Magnetic Hill experience. It cost, I think, $6 to do it. It's certainly worth exploring and checking it out. To see what's going on, you can actually see the spoiler of what's happening. But the reality is, even knowing the spoiler of what's happening, you're still fooled by it because it is a really strong optical illusion and worth the little journey. And of course, on your way out, you can get a beaver tail. Now, beaver tails, those of you who are not Canadian, are basically a large piece of fried dough that they fry up for you fresh and then top it. So it's kind of like a big flat donut with usually sweet toppings on the top. And they've built up the whole Magnetic Hill area in the same way they built up Niagara Falls. So there's amusement parks and water parks and a casino and all this stuff that is built up around just that single Magnetic Hill attraction. So we headed onward over to our destination, which was the Beach Breeze Motel. Now, the reason why we picked this motel, and it's in Grand Pré, and so it's on the Bay of Fundy there in the Minas Basin, is we wanted to be able to see the tides come in and out from our room. because Ken has struggles with mobility. We knew that it would be hard for him to appreciate what was going on if we had to have an adventure to get to a shore somewhere. But by having it where we could just look out the window from our motel and see what's going on, we were able to do that, and we were. So the Bay of Fundy is just amazing. It's the largest tides in the world. Over 6 hours, everything drops considerably. So this is the Hopewell Rocks in New Brunswick. So we actually didn't go there. I took this picture from online just to give you an idea of how big that transition is between low tide and high tide. And they tell you if you go to these places, they say you've got to watch the tide clocks because every 6 hours it comes in and out, and you could get stranded if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So again, this was our shoreline view, and then this is our view at low tide, but you can see how far it went out. Here, I'll put some side by side for you. So that is 6 hours difference, and it was so dramatic that from the room, we could watch the tide come in and out because in 6 hours, it made this change, and then the next 6 hours it went back the other way, back and forth. In some ways, it was kind of like being on a cruise ship, because you had differing views based on when you looked out and differing levels of activity. So either you'd have the rushing water and people swimming and kayaking, or you'd have the Great Plains and then wildlife would come out. I went out on a very brisk day just to show you how deep the water was. This was just a few feet off the shore, that same shore that was completely flat. It was entertaining. There were critters that would emerge at the lower tide. So I went wandering around during low tide and saw some crabs that came fumbling about, and all these little clams. They were doing little clam dances. So the trails are where they kind of moved around just in the time since the water went, and you'd see these little trails everywhere you looked. It was pretty neat. It also would attract, so this was an eagle that I happened to catch with my camera, because with all those little tasty critters that emerged, the birds also poured in to feast on the tasty critters. Now, the other thing I did is during low tide, I walked as far as I could before getting into water. So you can see my footprints coming all the way out here into the muck. Now, this was maybe just the ground was by this time 1 or 2 inches deep with mud. Oh wait, it's Canadian, so that's what, about 5 centimeters deep. But you can see the shoreline. You can see our hotel there in the middle. That tiny little building, that's the hotel. That's how far I was able to walk in low tide as compared to where I was up to my knees just off the shore in high tide. It's just amazing the differences. So this was Ken's view. He was able to sit and watch things come and go here from the hotel room, which was very nice, until the Americans showed up. So this, and how do we know they were Americans? Well, we could hear them talking through the window, and you could tell. So yes, that was, thankfully they left after one night, so Ken had better views for the next couple of days. Problem with that room, I can't recommend it for someone who is in a wheelchair, because to get into the room, you entered through this nice little sunroom, which is nice, but as you can see, there's massive steps to actually get into the hotel room itself. Now, once we were able to get Ken up and into the hotel room, he was able to stay there. The beds were there, a table was there, as a kitchenette, bathroom. So he was able to be there the whole time watching what was going on. We even had a wheelchair ramp, as you can see in the third picture. The problem is there was a large sleeper sofa in that outside room that was too heavy to move, so the wheelchair ramp wasn't even effective for getting up and down into the room. So that did cause some mobility problems, but at least Ken was able to see the Bay of Fundy from the hotel room, didn't have to leave or have an adventure to do so. Now, this area is an interesting historical area. The Grand Prix historic site was very close to where our hotel was, so we spent some time there learning about these dike lands that built up. So what happened is French settlers came over, known now as Acadians, and worked with the Micmac in the area in order to build their own land here through adding dikes. There was a lot of cooperation, or so they say, between the two groups. they would create their own space here to live on by building dikes and taking these salt marshes and turning them into farmable land. And that's what a lot of this is. There's large dikes all over. The historic site talks through how they came over and worked with the Micmac. And then when the British came in, they ended up sending all the Acadians out and kicking them out of this land. Many of them went down to the New Orleans area and Louisiana. So Cajun came from Acadian, and so that's why up here you will hear dialect that was reminiscent of being in New Orleans because they share some heritage there. It's a very interesting space to learn about the history of. Now, they are pretty serious about the dikes that are around. I thought they had these little warning pictures up everywhere that, then if you come walking through them, you may get a tractor just plows right through you. So there you go. So, and you can see the dike walls were these large stone walls that were really everywhere. That the dikes all created these giant mud flats. So everywhere you went, especially during low tide, this is what you would see were these giant red mud flats that would appear during low tide and then would disappear as the water came in during high tide. And it's so much so that mudsliding is a tourist activity. You can book mudsliding tours where you'll go to some of these mud areas and be able to slide down them. Now, when I was there, the timing was off. So they only do the mudsliding every few weeks because they have to time their tour timing with the tide timing. They have to work together, so it's not always available. But since I had a car, I did some research to find out where I could make my own mudsliding tour. So I did that. So here, you can watch me having a joyous time as I went out to one of the beaches. Sliding down, and it was a lot of fun, actually. I quite enjoyed that experience. I visited two places to do my mudsliding. So Avonport Beach was one, and I did some research online to find where locals go. And so the Avonport Beach was what you just saw the video of. And then the Avon River Heritage Society Museum, that is what the still picture was from. And so I visited both locations to check them out for mudsliding. And I enjoyed the Avonport Beach location better. It had a wider variety of locations to explore. It was a little easier to get around. The Avon River was a massive river, and it had larger flats, but was much harder to navigate, I found. If you're going to do your own mudsliding tour, a few tips that I learned. So because you're there at low tide, clean water is a very long way away. So bring your own clean water. I found with a 5-gallon bucket with water and a towel, I was able to use that to wipe down a lot of the mud with the water bucket. An empty bucket can help as well because in the Avondale Beach, there was still a trail of water that you could fill a bucket up with, and that can help you get things cleaned up. There's no hose. There's no tools to help you clean up, so you need to be prepared. A note on shoes. So under the mud, there are sharp rocks, so you definitely want to wear shoes. Now, I first tried to wear water shoes, and the thick mud just sucked them right off my feet. I then put on some old tennis shoes, which worked. They stayed on my feet. However, I didn't lace them up all the way up my foot. I only laced them up tightly across the arch of my foot, and I ended up getting some sores because of the amount of suction that the mud has on your feet. So wear lace-up shoes and lace them all the way up tightly up your feet. Trash bags are useful to take your muddy clothes, throw them in the trash bags, but realize it's going to be hard to keep your vehicle clean. So if you had a rental car, well, here's my pictures of tell me you've been mudsliding without telling me you've been mudsliding. The evidence. So there's your story about our great Canadian road trip, our adventure there. I'm going to slide my way out of here and slide into a beautiful sunset. I really enjoyed our time there. I like Atlantic Canada a lot. I look forward to visiting it some more. I would even move there someday if opportunities presented itself. I like the different terrains and environments. I like the people. I like that area. So if you haven't paid it a visit, well, go check it out. Take care, and I will see you all on another travel adventure. Bye-bye.